Salutations everybody, it is Maddie here today, and as always, you guessed it, I hope this video finds you well. So a big part of the core of the content I've created recently here on CLS has been about value. Where can PlayStation push the value forward for your hard-earned dollar? And of course, when we talk value, we have to look at the best value package in gaming right now, which is absolutely Xbox Game Pass. How will, if they want to, PlayStation respond to that? And there's been some interesting messaging alongside a brand new story that is released recently that I want to highlight because it seems like PlayStation is interested in responding to Xbox Game Pass, but just a mere couple of months ago, that seemingly wasn't the case. So let's analyze what CEO Jim Ryan had to say about Game Pass, and it all starts with this article here. The CEO's response comes in stark contrast to a statement he made in September prior to the launch of the PlayStation 5. Back then, the PlayStation had ruled out an Xbox Game Pass-esque service, saying that it, quote, doesn't make any sense, end quote, for the company's PS5 plans. Now, I know right away this comment came as a shock to me because you look at PlayStation Plus collection, you look at how PlayStation Now has evolved, allowing you to download PlayStation 4 games, and you think to yourself, okay, I imagine that PlayStation is interested in converting this into their own Game Pass competitor, or at least having their foot halfway through the door on something so they don't fall so far behind that Xbox starts to take over. But then, Jim Ryan had a little bit more to say on why exactly they weren't interested at the time in a Game Pass competitor. Mind you, once more, this is just a couple of months ago. We have had this conversation before. We are not going to go down the road of putting new releases into a subscription model, he had told GamesIndustry.biz. We want to make the games bigger and better, and hopefully, at some stage, more persistent. So putting those into a subscription model on day one for us just doesn't make any sense. And obviously one of the biggest parts of Game Pass, especially going into its future as we start to see a lot of the Xbox game studios that Xbox has acquired push out their respective titles, is that day one the first party games will be there on Game Pass. You don't have to pay $60 for them, whereas PlayStation sells millions and millions of copies of their own $60 games. So I can understand financially why they have absolutely no interest in actually putting it in a subscription service, because people have no problem paying $60 for their games, and I can't blame them, right? I think a lot of the time it has been absolutely 100% worth your $60. However, at the core of Jim Ryan's statement there is that they were not interested in some type of Game Pass competitor, whether it's day one first party exclusives or not. The idea of not being interested in saying, hey, let's get this third party, almost Netflix-like machine running on our game console that can have a bunch of different games in a library cycling in and out to get people excited about our platform. However, Jim Ryan was asked again about Game Pass just a couple of weeks ago, and this was his reply. Ryan replied cryptically saying that, quote, there is actually news to come, but just not today, end quote, before pointing towards the company's cloud streaming service, PlayStation Now. So he's claiming there is news to come, just not today, on something to do with a Game Pass competitor. Now, I have to be honest with everyone. I think PlayStation's messaging is terrible, and it's especially been horrible in 2020. I mean, look at the DualSense. When they first announced that, no one knew what PlayStation was doing. Why was the controller a big deal? Until YouTubers, press got their hands on it and described it a lot more properly. A lot of people, myself included, thought that this system wasn't even going to launch this year. PlayStation's just been very weird. You can name like 18 other examples of where their messaging got messed up. And I think at the heart of it right now is Jim Ryan kind of playing politician here, saying just what will work in the moment and then moving on. You know, he's garnering votes like, okay, this sounds like it would work in this situation here. Just walking home with pretty much no controversy. That's his goal here. So I don't know, just saying back in September there's no interest there, and then suddenly now, a couple months later, there is interest. Perhaps it's because within those last couple of months, we've learned that Game Pass has over 15 million subscribers, according to Phil Spencer. And I imagine that's slated only to grow as we see Bethesda get rolled in, as we see Microsoft acquire, most likely, more studios, adding to that insane amount of Xbox game studios that is already there. But to re-wrap to my point, I've always found it quite interesting that PlayStation Plus collection out of everything here seemed to be the major, this is our Game Pass response. You know, you combine that with the monthly games you get on PS Plus, PlayStation Now, as well as PS Plus collection, I thought, okay, this is good value here. This is enough for me to make a lot of choices in the PlayStation ecosystem on how I want to experience my games, and I don't feel like I'm being left behind because I'm not on Xbox. But it seems like they have something else in store, which I do find exciting, but obviously that brings into account, is Jim Ryan just saying this? I doubt it, right? Like, he's a CEO, but at the same time, I can't help but have that scratching feeling in my brain that Jim Ryan here is just playing a little bit of politics and just saying what's going to get him out of the room as quickly as possible with very few questions. So time will tell what PlayStation plans on doing when it comes to a Game Pass competitor, but I'm very curious to see what that will be. It'll certainly make a lot of noise, and they'll have a lot of components to their PlayStation Plus offering when you really look at the broad picture. I will say this much though, I would never expect, even before Jim Ryan said anything, I would never ever expect them to add, say, any brand new first party release like the next God of War to be day one in their form of Game Pass. Just, they sell way too many copies, It is turning down bags of cash, and PlayStation, I think, has their own benefit by providing those types of games that people see immediate value in and confidence in purchasing. And if I were them, I would also not be super interested in a Game Pass competitor, but they do have to recognize that Xbox is moving in a little bit, taking over the value game, and they gotta have something there. So we'll see what exactly that something is in due time. But overall, this was just some of my thoughts on the recent happenings in PlayStation's Game Pass competitor. So I leave it in your hands. What exactly do you think of this information? Let me know in the comments down below. And until next time, I'll talk with you soon. Stay sexy, stay active. I love you all. Peace.